Check one, check two, check one, check two. How are you? How are you doing, folks? Can you hear my squeaky chair? Can you hear my squeaky stool here? Um, how's it going out there? The sun is poking its way through the clouds somewhere on the other side. I've set up everything in completely the wrong position in this room. I should not have my computer screen in front of the window. I should have the light shining down on me, but we do what we can where we are with what we've got, right? Bit of reorganization in the last few days uh, in the hope that that would get things straight, but you know, sometimes the repositioning of everything is just the illusion of progress to some extent. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that this is episode 61, I think. It's somewhere up over 60. I think it's 61. Of my attempt to point out the fact that the lockdown is an entirely fabricated, in the sense that it's unnecessary event. The seasonal flu has been elevated through statistical manipulation to the level of a pandemic. Governments have panicked and have reacted to a lot of false data that they were given. Everybody should know better. The second wave has begun. Of course, anybody who understands how coronaviruses or viruses in general work, then they die out in the sense that they mutate and evolve into other things. This is natural. Also, you know, it's really strange having this virus reappear in the middle of summer. That's odd. Everything is odd about it. Everything goes against common sense. The common sense that the more people you test, and when you test thousands of people and the death rate does not increase, then the virus should statistically, can't say the word, become less lethal. It should become less deadly. You know, a rabbit could tell you that, right? So the amount of non-thinking going on as what was a death rate has now transformed into a testing positive rate, and who knows if the tests even work properly. A lot of them are contaminated and they don't test specifically for any one virus they were never meant to. So it's a big game. I've laid out all the documentation for everything from Event 2001, Operation Lockstep, Mindspace, and there was another document which I've shown you in previous presentations, shows how the World Health Organization had a contract that many of the countries in the world signed on to. I think about 150 of them did, that there would be 2 trial runs of pandemic viruses, one of them being a released virus that would happen before September 2020. Now, the side effect of this is that there are mass business closures, there's mass unemployment, there's mass stagnation, there's a slowdown in production, not just of goods and products, but of things like food as farms and other food production producers are shut down simply because people are testing positive even though they have no symptoms. Um, Imagine that, a virus so dangerous that you actually have to be told that you have it because you don't feel anything negative or anything bad at all. Viruses have always naturally been transmitted from people to people. It's the way. It's the way of the world. Um, and despite the fact we have biology in schools, students seem to have learned very little. Despite the fact we have geography in schools, people seem to understand very little. Despite the fact we have history in schools, people seem to understand very little. Despite the fact we have chemistry and physics in schools, people seem to understand very little. Despite the fact we have maths and accounting in schools, people seem to understand very little. Despite the fact we have languages in schools, people seem to understand very little. Um, Despite the fact we have sports in schools, people seem to be generally unhealthier. Despite the fact we have art in schools, people seem to have very little appreciation of the finer things in life. Interesting, isn't it? And you think the system has served us and done us well. The system has done us in. That's what the system has been done us. It's done us in, like, mate. It really has. So, I think that I've pretty much proved with documentation, with evidence, everything that I've said. And I think there's going to be simply a lot of repetition if I continue. Now repetition is part of the process of learning and of helping people out and of having good habits in our daily lives. However, repetition of just the same information again and again and again and again, because these people are not going to stop. They're obviously invested. I mean, here's an example of this. I was observing from a distance the actions of a local member of parliament, and this person shows no sign of waking up, no sign of doing anything contrary to the agenda, no sign of doing any research, no sign of looking at alternative ideas, just absolutely no sign at all. In fact, this person is promoting the propaganda, promoting the fake narrative, promoting false information. And it's a really bad sign because everybody is invested in that then. And we trust these people to know more than we know. And when they don't, it's a really bad sign of the direction in which things are going. I mentioned this before. The government has lost control. They are no longer in charge of what's happening. The private corporate partnerships have taken over. The National Health Service is taking its orders from the World Health Organization. That's a private company. And so that's now in control of people's health, and that's how they're going to push through their agendas. That's how they're going to try to lock everyone together into one system, into one way that will never be able to change. It's biblical in its proportions because, as governments have said recently, that they, in order to go into shops and in order to provide business to people, which is the right to buy and sell, you have to conform to certain ideas, which is to carry the branding and to carry the mark. And that's a biblical principle. So what have we learned in 2,000 years? Oh, not to mention the fact that all the churches are getting ransacked, vandalized, burnt. Every day in the media, if you look in the back pages, you can see stories of churches where people break in and they cut the heads off the angels and Jesus, and yeah, another cathedral in France burnt um, in the last week. So history is being erased. 1,000 churches in the last 3 years have been destroyed in that country, and so it's as much as it is a physical and personal war, it's a spiritual one as well, because the spirit is above, beyond, and outside of who we are, where we are, what we know. So I think that the Academy of Information series, the lockdown series, has reached an inevitable conclusion, because I'm just going to end up telling you more of the same type of information, more of the same kind of information. And I think that you know already. I think that you understand already. It's not going to stop. Evil is evil. Bad is bad. The lie can only perpetuate. Lie can only be perpetuated by another lie. And only the truth will set you free. So it's important to understand the point in time at which we're at, which is a point of a crossroads, where people are going to have to make a decision about what it is they would like to believe in, because that's a choice. They're also going to have to make a decision whether they're going to choose facts or feelings. Facts will help you act. Feelings will cause you to reject everything which is possibly real, and leave you fearful of the future. Very hard, dangerous, difficult roads to go down. We are 100 days out from, just over 100 days out from the American presidential election. Here we see a battle of ideologies. I think there's pretty much a stalemate. Neither side is going to progress without a large amount of election meddling and manipulation. As previously, both sides are going to be involved in it. I do have a preference. I think that having an independent business person as the president of your organization is not a bad idea. I think we have to look at history, we have to look at understanding, we have to look at the media. The media have been very, very complicit in the perpetuation of the problem. In fact, only yesterday I was looking at an article where the media was saying you must do this and you must do this by law, and it was just rubbish. It wasn't law at all. Now, the people who are writing this are either completely retarded or they know exactly what they're doing. Either way, it's really bad. It's same for the politician that I mentioned previously. This politician either has no idea what they're doing, which is terrible, or they know exactly what they're doing, which is also terrible, because they're not contributing to any positive change that is going to happen. It's going to be very negative, and that's the crisis, that's the crossroads that we face. People don't seem to understand history. It's come out recently that organizations, social media organizations, have been manipulating everything from the beginning. YouTube elevates certain videos that they want to promote. Twitter removes certain trends. There's shadow banning going on. Reddit just admitted that they won't allow any negative posts about black people because that's racist. You can post negatively about white people all the time. That's fine. The whole point about having an equal society is having it equal, not elevating one beyond the other. Having equal status for everybody. If you change the rules for if you change the rules of the game so that one side plays to different rules from the other side, then that's just ridiculous, right? So um, it's what was called something like affirmative action or positive discrimination, or Orwellian terminology, um, did nothing but cancel culture, basically cancel history, and this is where we're this is where we're at now, in terms of a culture, in terms of a world, and in terms of a society. And there's going to be a very, very, very strong push for the vaccination of everybody to solve a problem which, um, what's the death rate from coronavirus? It's like it's less than zero point 0.1 now, and going down massively on a daily scale as we test thousands more people, so the death rate goes down. So it was never a pandemic. It's never going to be a pandemic. It's all about political, social change. It's all about behaviorism. It's all about limiting what it is that people are able to achieve, are able to do in their lives. It's about taking control of businesses. It's about taking control of families. It's about taking control of production and development. It's about steering the herd in a very unique, a very specific direction. Once upon a time, the artists and the musicians would rally against this. Now they're pretty much silent. Very, very, very few people standing up against this. And when people do stand up, they're inevitably controlled to some extent. You'll be able to find a few people who are not. Kanye West is an interesting character. He likes to say what he thinks, and he's definitely got some balls and some guts to do that. Says he might run for president. Doesn't have the social, political, financial backing to do that. He's not part of the system, and the system is very much integrated into allowing the system to control the system. More wealth has transferred into the hands of the top 100 richest people in the world in the last 3 to 4 months than at any time previously in history. Very few people want to talk about that. The poor get poorer. 300,000 people now starving to death every single day according to the World Food Programme. So that's a couple of million a week, and that's pretty crazy, right? Nobody really wants to think about it. There's a lot of bad things going on. Everybody wants to, everyone who's got an iPhone and a pair of Nike trainers wants to attack people who they say are just abusing the system. But funny how everybody migrates to the West and attacks the West and then uses the products of the West, specifically products made in slave factories in China and Indonesia, and just virtue signals. They just virtue signal. Everybody wants to project how good they are onto the world, without really understanding what the underlying problem is. So many people doing so many good things, communities coming together, but very much their hands are tied. There's not going to be a V-shaped recovery, as the government have stated. There's going to be the gutting of a lot of society, the gutting of a lot of industry, the gutting of a lot of what holds everyone and everything together. The people will be corralled into policing the people. That's the next stage. And and they will. just as there are social media police um, saying that you can't say this and you can't say that, the next stage is obviously thought police. Having certain thoughts is a crime. Thinking a certain way is a crime. Having an opinion is almost a crime. Um, the way that people will attack you if you point out a lot of the green movement is not green. It's very much a watermelon movement. Look into the history, look into the Club of Rome, um, and how intellectual elites realized that in order to control people, they would have to control the environment in which people live. You have to pay your dues. If you don't pay your dues, then you don't get anywhere at all. Crazy, huh? It's a crazy, 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 crazy world that we live in. So, what this means for me is that I want to change my focus. Um, as I said, I've laid out all the evidence, and you move on. Like, like in a court case or a trial, you lay out your evidence, you present your case, you win or you lose, you move on. And for me, moving on means looking at other projects that I have. I have a book that I should have released 10 years ago. There's bits and pieces sitting on my desktop that I gotta focus on and bring together. I'm still not sure if I'm going to get it out there because like I said, it's bits and pieces. It doesn't have the continuity of the previous books, but I think that the thing is just to put stuff out and let people react to it. And it doesn't matter if you produce a book and it's not very good. The fact is you produced a book, right? So, and then you can go back and, with technology, you can go back and refine it. You can make it better. You can add things. You can take things out. You can do stuff with it. So, the book is called The Language of Deceit. It basically covers some interesting aspects of historical behaviorism and covers a lot of aspects of education as well. And then there's some oddities that I want to put in, just passing thoughts and ideas. So I'd like to compile that and put that out. We will see where that leads. Also, that will give me the opportunity, I think, to as I go through the book, to add little ideas into the work that I do. Put out little ideas. I think as I've done with the other books, I will record the book as I'm creating the book and then put it out. And the recording will be, motivation for part of the process. Do a little recording every day and put it out to people, and people can see how things are progressing with ideas, and hopefully, essentially, to create an academy of ideas for people. One is better than none. That's the principle. If you can affect one person's life in a positive way, then you can affect more people's lives in a positive way. So that is the idea. Also, there's the language coaching, which continues, the life coaching, which continues, the personal development work, which continues, and maybe to start up another series, but not specifically to focus on the lockdown, because I think that although the government's going to push forward, that it's clear now we've got two groups. We've got the thinking camp and the non-thinking camp. Maybe it's always been like that. But, the the woke have awoken. The rest are still asleep. They'll stay like that for forever, perhaps, forever. And also just doing this takes up a bit of my time. Well, it's also interesting because, it's interesting the process of doing things, because through the process of doing things, you realize how you have to organize and order your thoughts so that your actions become practical, and so that you can think clearly about what it is that you're doing, where it is that you're going, where it is that you want to go, and how you can best help people. Right now, this YouTube channel, which is small, it's always been small, has has had over 500,000 views, and I think that's pretty cool for something based in philosophy and ideas to have some kind of effect on the world. Um, there's also the podcast as well, so people who follow the audio version, not the visuals. Um, it's interesting to see how that grows and then stagnates and then drops, and to see what people are interested in. Um, so it would be very easy to realize what people are interested in and provide something to hit that mark, but that's never been my interest. My interest has always been discovery, essentially self-discovery, and the learning of truth. So the end is the beginning. That was a recent title, wasn't it? Where you start and then you finish and then you have to start again. So the finishing of one series or one project is the opportunity to develop another project. And also, I know for myself, here's one of those little principles of success, is that if I want to do something, sometimes I have to focus on just that one thing, right? Focus on just one thing, getting one thing done. And it doesn't have to be that you focus on it every day. You can try, you can do it, but if you have a day and devote that day to just getting that one thing done. And so I need to devote some days to getting just one thing done and one thing done, and get those key points done and dusted and organized and out of the way, so that I can finish certain projects and begin new directions. So I hope that makes some kind of sense to you about this series specifically. Normally I just kind of end a series and say thanks for listening and just move on to the next thing, because people will follow you if they want to. You don't need to try to, I don't feel like I need to try to persuade people to follow me. People like what they like. They can do what they want to do. I'm not here to control people. But I just want to make people think as much as I make myself think. One of the interesting challenges is talking with people around about you. Like, I talk with people around about me and then trying to understand how they think, and asking people what their thoughts are based on, what their information is based on, because I don't think there's any such thing as a wrong thought. There is something called wrong think, but that's different, right? There's no such thing as a wrong thought, because your thoughts are based on the information that you have. So if you're putting in the wrong information, obviously the program's not going to function properly. So that's interesting to understand. A lot of people don't have a good start in life. They don't have the background in order to help them understand the things they need to understand, because you're invested in your history. You're invested in your history being good, so that you understand that the present is also fine. When the past is negative, it's sometimes hard to claw your way out of that, and we very often bury it, and so as a result not know who we are and misunderstand the present. Anyway, you can't deny that these are interesting times that, as I said earlier, were times that are biblical. I mean, things are happening on on epic scales, on epic proportions. It's also a great time for transformation and change. As much as every business falls apart during the lockdown, it's an opportunity to redirect. Um, it's a really good opportunity if you weren't happy with things before to try to change and find a happier path or a happier route. Um, all these people stepping back and waiting, that's a giant mistake. Um, you gotta you gotta move on. You gotta move forward. You've got to make the deals now to do things through the future. You've got to prepare for the next step and the next stage. You also have to believe that everything is going to be okay in a reasonable and realistic way, of course, but it's necessary to believe that. So there's the ramble. There's the ramble. I'm going to cover a few points that I think are relevant and important and that people do need to talk about. Of course, these are topics picked from my Facebook feed. It's also interesting doing this. Like if you're interested in doing a presentation like this, you can either run it through like OBS, just have two screens on one screen, and they allow you to cut and chop it. What I do is I use Logitech software, which have a program that gives you the same basically ideas and opportunities. It's just it's specific for Logitech. Wasn't a plan. Software comes with the camera that I bought, which is a Brio 4K Stream Edition camera, which I generally wouldn't recommend. I think it's overpriced. You're better to spend your money on. You'd be better to spend like 800 to £1,000 on a really good computer, knowing that it's got an HD camera and having everything integrally built in than having to plug extra things into your computer. Computers, endless problems, really. Talking about problems, you can follow my life coaching series on YouTube and on other streams. You might hear more about me talking about problems and solutions and ways forward. Remember that information that I put out is available on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and now we need to transform as well. We need to move to other sources. We need to move away from YouTube. We need to move to BitChute and Brighteon and Library and banned.video. So we need to move to these platforms. We need to move to Minds, to Gab, to Parler, in order to communicate effectively with each other. Yeah, I could see myself doing these presentations on the lockdown for a long period of time, but it's just going to end up being this negative thing happened, this negative thing happened, and oh my god, and oh my god, and oh my god, and I need to refocus for myself, because I think that a lot of the negativity that's pumped out is projection. A lot of people doing bad things. On one side you need to shine light on people doing bad things, so to try and stop them doing it. And on the other side, it does kind of depress people if you just pump out this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened. I think it's sort of more important to understand the processes, and those processes are understood on a personal level through personal changes that people will make in their own lives. So it's time for a little bit of reflection and redirection in order to keep moving, basically, in order to keep moving. There's nothing wrong with like having one idea and hitting one idea and making it work, and I don't know, you play football well, so you play football your whole life, right? And you can be really successful doing that. You got to understand who you are. You got to understand what works for you. Is doing one thing going to work for you? Are you going to be able to maintain your motivation? Or do you need to stop at various points in time and think and rethink about the changes that you need to make? So more visible now than ever is the fact that, and it's funny because I picked this up from Facebook Memories, the history section. I posted this 9 years ago, that our present economic turmoil is less of the world order unraveling and more of the communist order learning to attack capitalism at its core. And, this is what we're seeing with the Black Lives Matter movement, the Antifa. Everything is an attack on capitalism. Capitalism is not perfect, but it has pulled more people out of poverty than any other system that we've had. So, I think it needs reins on it. It needs to be monitored. It needs to be controlled. Interesting, the systems of control that do exist. Interesting, the systems of belief that do exist as well. Yeah. Let me tell you something. This white supremacist rubbish, right? Like almost every white person, and I don't see a difference between white people and black people. It's just people. It's just one human race, right? If you're nice, I treat you nice. If you're nasty, you can get out of my face, right? I just seen people struggle, like their whole lives struggle. Like everybody struggles. I don't think there's life without struggle. This idea that some people have got it easy. Does anybody have it easy? And then, do you actually want it to be easy? I'm not sure that people actually want things to be easy. I'm not sure at all. I don't want things to be easy for me. Not all the time. I need my ass kicked. Everybody needs their ass kicked, right? Everybody needs a challenge in their day. How do you know you've given up on life? You've given up on life when you give up on the challenges. Right out in front of me, there's a window. Beyond the window, there's a road. Beyond the road, there's a play park. Beyond the play park, there's a big wall. And on the other side of the wall, there's the sea. It's the North Sea. It's cold. A lot of seaweed. Crabs, fish, jellyfish, dolphins from time to time, sharks. Probably other things. I have no idea what they are. Lobsters. There's lobsters in there as well. So, a lobster shop around the corner. And so, I could go out there every day and put myself in the water and chill. But I don't, and most people don't, because it's not an easy thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to do. But you could. You could do it at any point in time. You could do it now. You could do it in 5 minutes. You could plan to do it every day. Yeah, having things easy is not always the way. The struggle is in learning. The struggle is in understanding. Try to build a business. What is it that a real business? Not build a business because the government have said, okay, we're going to offer huge tax breaks or tax cuts or incentives in this area if you provide this service, and people jump up to follow it because they can try to make a quick profit, and then they split out of the region when the incentive ends, or they just close the business, right? It's not real business. Real business is looking at society, understanding what society needs, and providing some level of service. Realizing that people people who build businesses are going to need businesses to provide services from. You got your shop, so maybe you got your little local shop, so you need someone to provide fruit and vegetables to it. You need people to deliver it. You need someone to come and clean the shop. You need someone to clean the windows. You need somebody to keep things tidy. You need somebody to provide financial services and legal advice for you, etc., etc. Understanding the structures of society, understanding how the roads are going to be built, who's going to cut the grass, who's going to plant the flowers, if there are any flowers, or if people should or shouldn't. Maybe it should just be left wild. I wonder how much of the wilding of society, the wilding of nature is just people just getting tired of like organizing stuff. Just leave it. Just leave it. It's whatever. It's whatever. Yeah. We are capable of great things when we channel ourselves in the right direction. Most projects require money. Banks are good in the sense that they provide risk assessments. They check that you're not too insane with your plans and that they might actually have a chance of working out, which is accountability, which is a good thing. Paying huge amounts of interest back, watching governments bail out the banks, watching the banks change the rules. It's not cool most of the time, right? It's just not cool. So, it is fascinating. It's just being able to sit down and do these videos and audios just to talk. Have you ever just talked and just put out whatever's in your head? This is actually, what I'm talking about is what I'm thinking. That's what's scary for a lot of people. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are frightened just to talk about what it is that they're thinking because they're worried that other people might think that they're crazy, and so they bottle it up inside and they just go along with things, and eventually they make a whole series of terrible choices because they're never able to be their real self. They surround themselves with other people who are not real, and everybody just feeds into a fake environment. You end up with groupthink, and you lose yourself, as if you ever knew who you truly really were, right? As if you ever knew, right? And one thing that's important for me is just to focus on, just to get away from this idea of lockdown and power struggle and the fact that a lot of people are completely insane. And there's no point sometimes focusing on the insanity of insane people. Everything's an intelligence test, and I don't want to spend my life living in a reaction to other people's actions. I've got things that I want to do, and in order to do them, I have to be creative in what it is that I want to create and try to lead other people in that way. Yes, beware of the dangers, but if you focus all the time on the dangers, then you don't get the job done, do you? You don't want to live your life like a soldier, creeping through some enemy town somewhere, always worried that some sniper's gonna have you in the crosshairs. It's funny what pops into people's heads, right? But then that's experiences, right? I mean, if you focus on your own ideas, you will find that what happened a day, 2 days ago, 3 days ago affects what you say today. Everything from where you were, who you were with, to what you ate, to what they did. And the soldier analogy comes specifically from my fact from the fact that my son played Call of Duty yesterday, and I was watching him play that, and I was thinking about some things, and everything we do affects our mind, our mindset. Everything we do affects our thoughts and our ideas. Um, and you never know what's going to come from what it is that you're doing either, because a little bit technical things. Xbox broadcasts through a system called Mixer, which allows you to drop stuff on YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms. So the Xbox shut that down a few days ago, and I had to find another way for my son to broadcast, because I want him to broadcast his playing, because it's just a fun way to get out and meet people, and it's nice to have a record of things that people have done. Hopefully, I'll be able for posterity to record some, to have some of these recordings for his future, if my channels don't get banned, of course. Which there's a high probability that actually there's a low probability that they'll get banned, because most people don't get beyond the shadow banning part. Only if you're going to be really effective. Yeah, only if you're a Tommy Robinson or a Proud Boy or a Stefan Molyneux or an Alex Jones or a Stephen Crowder. These or Paul Joseph Watson, right? Only if you're truly effective in shaping people's thoughts and ideas do they ban you. I don't think I'm going to get that far. Big enough problem shaping my own thoughts and ideas. But then don't we all? So, also popping up on the Facebook memories was some information about the shadow that we are already under. So I mentioned, and have mentioned many times, that the World Health Organization, which is a private company run by, it seems, a cabal of banks and Marxist-related organizations. People who bankrolled Mao and thought that the Chinese Great Leap Forward was fantastic when everybody was insane, basically, because insanity was the normality. So the World Health Organization is a division of the United Nations. The United Nations, of course, is a division of the League of Nations, going back step. This bringing everybody together with this idea that giant external threats are terrible, and that if we work together, we'll find solutions. But as only psychopaths seek power, then the people at the top are going to be extra psychopathic, and the madness just grows exponentially as you get further up the the power table struggle, as you get to the top of the pyramid, basically. So, if you can hear noises in the background, it's because Zora is awake. She fell asleep in my bed last night. Everybody had to, musical beds, everybody had to sleep in different beds last night. It was funny. Parenting. Parenting 101. Sleep is a thing of the past. There we go. Anyway, people like to talk about human rights. Rights are fine as long as they're not things that are granted to you, because if they're granted to you, they can be taken away. They sort of have to be inalienable. This sort of self-ordained kind of principles, a la the American Declaration of Independence. It's self-evident, right? Self-evident, and that's a key. Not all those key ideas that are not taught anymore. Yeah, as if they're suddenly irrelevant. The great experiments of history are what they are, I suppose. Anyway, see, I posted this in 2012. More relevant now than ever because people haven't read, people just like read the first 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 declarations of human rights, and it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. And as you get further down the list, it doesn't get better. It actually gets worse. Don't make it too complicated. Otherwise, you get tied up in the processes, right? So, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 29, Section 3. You will do well, you could do well to remember this. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 29, Section 3. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. These rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations. And so, there it is. So you have rights as long as they don't contradict, go in opposition or interfere with the purposes and principles of the United Nations. Basically, the United Nations have the ultimate power to decide about everything, and you then are subject to these ideas and these powers and have to follow them. You do not have a choice. Crazy, huh? Crazy. So, and this is what people don't want to talk about. The elephant in the room. There is a giant elephant in the room. This lack of knowledge that people have. The fact that people think, well, things are generally okay anyway, right? This idea that, oh, it's a conspiracy that a tiny handful of people are in control of everything in the world. As my friend Nigel recently pointed out, look at what's just happened. A tiny handful of people have shut down the businesses. They've shut down the transportation. They've shut down the airlines. They've shut down the schools. They've shut down the hospitals. They've shut down the services. They've shut down movement. They've shut down access. They've shut down thinking. And thank God for the internet, right? I mean, where would we be without the internet? Really? Where would we be without this ability to dig deeper and search for more? Which is fine as long as we've got power. And if you want to see real authority exercised, you have to understand that the next level is not just the turning off of services and access. It's the limiting of food and the limiting of the use of energy. That is when we know that we're in even deeper trouble than we're already in right now. So look for the signs around about. Understand where your energy comes from. Understand who controls it. And then understand your own energy and how you can control that. And then maybe you can step into the power that you have as a person and affect some level of conscious, positive change on society, on yourself, on your friends, on your family, on everyone around about you. Thanks very much for tuning in. There's obviously a lot more that I could point out. There's obviously a lot of other bad things going on. But I'm going to try to focus on the educational elements from now. And maybe it will work, maybe it won't. You have to try things, right? Like the surfers out there trying to catch the wave and missing it. They try to catch the next one and they work on, they work on getting better, bit by bit, bit by bit. My name is G. I represent the Academy. You can find out more information about my work under Graham William Hendry on the internet or the Academy of Language Therapy and Life Coaching. It's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and LinkedIn right now. Hoping to transfer over to BitChute, Brighteon, BANNED.VIDEO, Parler, Minds, LBRY, and other platforms. Help out people doing the good things. And remember, there's a difference between legal and lawful, right? Just because something is made legal or illegal does not mean that it is lawful. No law should impede people's progress in life or hurt them. Be aware of that. Stand in your own power. Challenge what you need to challenge. Change what you need to change. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I wish you a fantastic day. And always, always remember to tell the ones you love that you love them. Take care.